Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The autumn of 1995 was settling gently into the quiet Virginia countryside. Inside the Hayes family's sprawling home, the air was thick with a dull tension. Jonathan Hayes, a powerful and respected businessman, stood in the wood-paneled living room, his hard gaze fixed on his son's small, trembling form. Ethan was only 3 years old. His frail body was marked by partial paralysis, a severe motor disability that limited his movement. Every step, every gesture was a silent struggle. Since the tragic death of his wife, Sarah, a few months earlier, during childbirth, Jonathan had lived in icy silence, unable to face reality. Pain, guilt, and fear of an uncertain future had plunged him into emotional silence. That evening, as the house seemed locked in an oppressive weight, Jonathan made a terrible decision. He stood up slowly, wordlessly, and approached Ethan's crib. The little boy, his eyes wide open, seemed to be seeking his father's warmth. Jonathan took Ethan in his arms, his shaking hands betraying a heartbreaking inner conflict. He looked one last time at his son's innocent face, then stepped out into the cold night. The garden was bathed in silvery light, the full moon illuminating the silhouette of a large oak tree at the edge of the forest. Dead leaves crunched beneath his feet as he moved forward, each step heavier than the last. Arriving at the foot of the oak tree, Jonathan gently placed Ethan on the carpet of leaves. The breeze caressed the branches like a natural lullaby. He looked around, then, without a backward glance, walked away, leaving the distant sound of his footsteps to fade into the night. Alone, fragile, and defenseless, Ethan kept his eyes open, trying to understand the oppressive silence that surrounded him. The cold bit at his skin, but a dark force urged him not to give up. Hours passed, and in the early morning, a figure appeared at the edge of the woods. Rose, a woman of about 70, with braided silver hair, was coming out of her cabin, a basket of medicinal plants in her hand. She spotted the little boy, lying under the old oak tree, and her heart sank. Without hesitation, she approached quietly, speaking in a calm, gentle voice. "Hey, kiddo, don't worry. I'll take care of you." Rose wrapped Ethan in a warm blanket, carefully carrying him to her modest home. There, she offered him refuge, a shelter made of wood and love. The first few days were challenging. Ethan, unable to walk unaided, relied on Rose for every movement. But the old woman not only had patience, she had the wisdom of a life spent in harmony with nature. She showed him how to listen to the birds singing, to feel the earth beneath his fingers, to observe the changing seasons. She also taught him the value of resilience, the strength of spirit in the face of obstacles. Your body may be fragile, Ethan, but your spirit is a warrior. You will learn to dance with the wind, to walk with the sun. Over time, a deep bond developed between them. Rose became more than a protector, a mother, a guide, a friend. Despite his physical limitations, Ethan developed an impressive inner energy. He learned to move with improvised aids, built tools, and communicated with animals. He became a child of the woods, possessing wisdom beyond his years. The forest was no longer just a refuge. It had become his kingdom. 30 winters, 30 summers, 30 autumns. Time had passed without the world caring about the abandoned child. But Ethan had grown, forged in the silence and solitude of the woods. At 33, he had become a robust man, marked by life. His gaze clear and deep like an ancient lake. His gait was slow but sure, supported by a staff carved by his own hands. His disability was still there, but he had never let it define who he was. He lived in a cabin he had built himself with the guidance of Rose, now deceased. He hunted with a bow, recognized animal tracks, and knew where to find clean water even in dry summers. The inhabitants of the neighboring hamlets knew him as the son of the woods, a mysterious, almost mythical being, always ready to help, but who lived apart from the world of men. But despite his apparent peace, a silent pain persisted deep within him, an emptiness that neither trees nor seasons could fill, the memory of a father, of a cold gaze, of an abandonment that could never be explained. One winter morning, as snow blanketed the forest in a silent blanket, a man knocked at her door. He wore a heavy wool coat and carried a sealed envelope. The messenger, sent from Richmond, seemed almost intimidated by this sharp-eyed woodsman. "It's a letter from Jonathan Hayes, your father. He's dying. He wants to see you." Ethan took the envelope in his rough fingers. The paper was luxurious, but cold, like the world he had left as a child. He said nothing, but he read that letter dozens of times that night, by the light of an oil lamp. He hesitated. Why now? Why after all this time? But an inner voice, perhaps Rose's, told him he had to seek out the truth. Richmond. The city buzzed like a hive of metal and glass. The honking horns, the screens, the milling crowds. Ethan felt like a stranger in a world that had gone on without him. His clothes made of rustic canvas and worn leather, his simple gestures, his frank gaze. Everything about him was disturbing. People looked at him with curiosity or suspicion, some with condescension. He walked through the streets slowly, absorbing every detail with a mixture of wonder and pain. Memories came flooding back. A broken swing in the park, a father's missing arms, the taste of warm milk Rose had made. Every corner of the city awakened a scar. It was in front of the private hospital where Jonathan Hayes resided that he encountered Lisa Matthews, a young journalist and keen observer. She noticed him when he was turned away by a security guard, unable to prove his identity. She approached, intrigued by his unusual appearance. "Who are you exactly?" she asked curiously. "I am his son." Lisa, fascinated, invited him to sit in a cafe on the corner. He spoke little, but enough to pique her interest. She sensed there was a human story there, an injustice, a forgotten truth. Touched by his raw sincerity, she decided to help him. She contacted lawyers and used her media contacts to apply pressure. Little by little, doors began to open. Jonathan Hayes was a shadow of the man he once was. Lying in a luxurious room, his breathing machines taking over, his face hollow and his eyes lost. When Ethan entered, Jonathan looked away. He recognized the man without accepting him. How could this son, this child he had let die, still be here? "You have no business being here." But Ethan, standing despite his pain, looked him straight in the eyes. "You left me. You condemned me. And yet, I am alive." Jonathan remained silent. Days passed. Lisa returned every night, encouraging Ethan not to run away. And little by little, something changed. Jonathan, consumed by illness and the weight of years, began to speak. At first in fragments, then with tears. He recounted his fear, his cowardice, his pain at losing his wife, and his inability to love a son who was different. The days ticked by slowly in the hospital room. Jonathan Hayes's breath is getting shorter and shorter, but every night, he asks to see Ethan. The dialogue is hesitant at first, punctuated by silences. But gradually, Jonathan's voice becomes that of a man with nothing left to lose, except his pride. Lying under the white sheets, his hands trembling, he looks up at the son he never knew. "I didn't know how to love you, Ethan. I was afraid. Your mother, she was my world. And when she died, I saw in you not a child, but a reminder of her disappearance. And your fragile body. I thought you wouldn't last. So I ran." Ethan remained silent, his arms crossed, his gaze hard. But behind this silence, it's not anger that's brewing, it's anticipation. The anticipation of a son who has wanted to hear these words for 30 years. Jonathan continues, his voice broken by the sobs he had suppressed all his life. I thought leaving you there was better than seeing you suffer here. But it was cowardly. I lived in luxury, in appearances. I built everything except myself." Ethan approaches slowly. He places his hand on his father's. Then he speaks. "You broke me, but not destroyed me. Rose taught me to live with that emptiness, to transform it into strength. I am what I am, not gracito you, but despite you." He pauses, then adds, more quietly, "And yet, I forgive you, not to erase what you did, but so that I am no longer a prisoner of it. My love for life is stronger than your fear." Tears stream down Jonathan's parchment-like cheeks. For the first time, he cries not out of regret, but out of relief. Ethan's forgiveness is a balm he no longer hoped for. He closes his eyes, soothed. Lisa, true to her commitment, publishes Ethan's story in a major national newspaper. The article, titled "The Man the Woods Saved," goes viral. It is not a tale of revenge, but a path of light. The audience discovers a man who, despite rejection, loneliness, and pain, chose to build, to elevate, to pass on. Letters are pouring in. From mothers, young people with disabilities, broken families. Testimonies. Support. Invitations to conferences, meetings, and TV appearances. But Ethan rejects empty spotlights. He accepts visibility, as long as it serves a purpose. This is how he founded the Rose Trail, an association dedicated to abandoned children, people with disabilities, and empathy education. The association works to create welcoming places, autonomy training, and anti-stigma campaigns. Its first center was opened in the very forest where it had been left, where it all began. A few weeks later, Jonathan passed away peacefully. In his hand, he held a photo of Rose and Ethan as children, which Lisa had found in the local archives. Ethan plans a simple, yet dignified funeral. He doesn't seek to rewrite history, but to bring it to a close with truth. In front of his father's grave, he simply whispers, "You gave me life, then you took love away from me. But I found the rest on my own. May peace find you at last." Ethan regularly returns to the woods, no longer to escape, but to recharge. He builds a small open library in his childhood clearing, where visitors can read, write, or simply listen to the trees. Lisa stayed by his side. Their bond grew into deep affection. Together, they wrote a book, Under the Oak, a story between memory, pain, and rebirth. And sometimes Ethan sits under the old oak tree where it all began. He closes his eyes, listens to the wind. He thinks of Rose. He thinks of the child he once was. And he smiles, for he now knows that even the most wounded roots can bear fruit.